Welcome back to Faith It Till You Make It, the podcast where faith meets entrepreneurship and business. This is episode 11, and we will be talking about consistency, which I think is so great. We recently took a small break. I don't know what state you live in, but here it was spring break for a lot of the students here. And so, as a business owner, I just decided to take a mini spring break so that I can wrap up my quarter one and keep it pushing and have a better outcome for quarter two, which included us adding in iHeartRadio. So if we have any new iHeartRadio listeners, welcome to the podcast. We're excited to have you. Make sure you share this with other iHeartRadio listeners. I'm really excited that we're able to expand the podcast to more broadcasting sites because everybody doesn't use Apple or Spotify. So I'm definitely grateful that we were able to push this out to iHeartRadio listeners. But I really just wanted to have more like a intimate conversation about consistency. We won't be really hitting points today, but I do think it's definitely noteworthy where you can sit down and take some notes. For me, what I have noticed about my consistency is whether I think something is a good idea or God gives me an assignment, I will run with it. And at the very beginning, I'm very, very, very excited. And I choose to start taking notes, building a plan, doing all the beginning stages things, and everything is going great. And then I may actually start the project, just like this podcast. I'll start doing episodes, and there's something about when you almost sow a seed that sometimes we're ready to see. And I don't mean a financial seed. I mean sowing the seed of purpose things that you feel like you should be doing, or if you're just starting off on the job and you're just getting your footing in it. Sometimes we want to see a harvest immediately. And what I'm learning is that you won't see a harvest immediately. You have to take your time, and some things take time to grow. And so battling wanting to give up in the midst of not seeing some of the goals or hitting some of the metrics that you made up, and some of the things that they could be great, because metrics and goals and all of that is great. You should definitely have those. And especially for your business, you should have different metrics you want to meet. But there's a tendency for me personally to reassess myself way too early. I will start doing something and then I'm like, wait, I don't know if I should be doing, like, this isn't giving me, I don't feel like I'm reaping the benefits that I saw before or that I was hoping to see. Because sometimes we have projects and we start seeing immediate great feedback because maybe it is something that is right on time, right with the right audience, and boom, it takes off. And that has happened for certain things. But then there are other things that I've noticed that it's going to take some time. It's not just going to always be you put it out there and it goes boom, or for some people on social media it goes viral and things like that. And so I'm learning to stick it out even on the days that I don't want to do it, because I know a lot of us will have a tendency to let our duties be based on how we feel for the day. So if we feel like doing it, we'll do it, but if we don't, and I have constantly pushed myself that even if I don't feel like doing something, I have to make myself do it, because if not, I'm letting my emotions run the show. And when I look at all the greats, I just don't think they had a habit of letting their emotions decide whether or not they were going to get up and do the hard work. Recently I have started listening to the Earn Your Leisure podcast, and it just gives some great like financial, business, investing tips. But they recently had Steve Harvey on, and one thing I loved that he said was that we have if you look at your hard days, your tough days, the days you wanted to give up, you have about 100% track record of surviving those days. And a lot of times we don't look at it like that. We look at our bad days and we just think, oh my gosh, is this going to go on forever? But we miscount and ignore the days that you actually made it through that day, and you actually had a positive outcome on the opposite side of it. Like once you got out of it, you realize like, okay, that was just a hard day, but I got this. And that's what keeps us going. I know for me, I've seen a definite cycle of I'll be revved up, ready to go, super excited. I'll start working steady. It feels good. And then it always hits this peak where I'm like, it feels like I'm doing a lot, but not getting enough back. Okay. Like I'm putting a lot of energy, a lot of work, a lot of hours and sweat into this, but I don't feel like I'm reaping the benefits of the work that I'm putting in. And there's a tendency right at that moment to give up and stop. And what I've noticed is two things, and this is for me personally, is that either I will get rejuvenated because I'll reset myself and be like, okay, God, like, I don't even know the words to pray, but right now what I'm going to do is just give it to you, and I'm just going to go to sleep and hope tomorrow it's better. And then usually something encourages me, whether somebody sends me a text message and they don't know I need it, or I get a phone call, or I get some exciting news about a new client, or just anything, and that kind of helps me push and keep going. Or the opposite side is I get through that hard time, and on the other side is exactly what I was hoping for. On the other side is this big grand reward that God has set up. And so I just want to encourage you that during those times, some of the things you can do, because a lot of times we want to just do nothing. You know, you want to go grab a big bucket of ice cream, you want to wallow, and sometimes you have to do that. Hey, I don't think anyone's above having pity moments. Like, those are real things. Like, sometimes we have moments where we just want to eat some ice cream, whine a little bit, and then keep going. I just would say make that very rare. Don't make that a habit, because sometimes that can turn into complaining. And one thing I learned is complaining delays your journey longer. And so I would stay away from complaining, but it's nothing wrong that if you've had a long day, you feel like you've been putting in a lot of work, the consistency doesn't seem to be there, maybe go grab you a Chick-fil-A sandwich and, take you a quick break. But then you got to get back to it. Because one thing I've learned is letting my emotions run the show will always run me exactly the opposite of where I want to go. So my emotions can't run the show. And even when I don't feel like being consistent, I have to find a way to push myself. And on the days that I literally cannot push myself, take a break. Take a break. Because a lot of times, I know for me, my competition is never another person, it's myself. I'm harder on me. I'm harder on the things that I know that I can do very well, and I know I can achieve them if I work hard. So I will constantly tell myself, Clarissa, you could be working harder. You're not doing enough. And when I will share that with a close friend or a close relative, they're like, Clarissa, you do too much. Like, what do you mean you're not doing enough? But for me, I just feel like I'm not doing enough. And that feeling of not doing enough comes from me feeling like there's a lack of reciprocity. I don't feel like I'm getting the same reward as what I'm putting out. But that is one of the, it can be a stumbling block if you let it. But if you can get past that, let me tell you, it's so much greater on the other side of that. Because once you get past that and you realize that your emotions won't run the show, you realize you put that boss mentality on, you're like, you know what? No, I'm going to go in here and do this. I'm going to make time for it, or I'm going to take away a reward that I usually give myself because I did not do it. Because I feel like I need to hit these goals or metrics that I set up for myself. And for me to do that, I need to be I wouldn't say strict with myself, but there needs to be consequences for me not meeting certain goals or doing certain things that I want to do. Like, I can't just always go reward myself with shopping, but I know I haven't taken care of my business. And that's just a personal thing for me. That I'm not saying that I take away everything. I'm just saying sometimes I'm like, nope, you know what? You didn't use your time wisely to do X, Y, and Z, so don't go binge watch Netflix. Go do your work. And so sometimes instead of watching Netflix on Saturday, I'm doing work because I know I missed some of the things that I really wanted to do during the week that would push the business forward. And so I really want to help other people get over that hump because I realize that maybe I went through it and I'm going through it constantly because it comes and goes. Sometimes I'm super consistent and I see great results, and then sometimes I'm super consistent and it looks very dry. I don't see any harvest. The season looks very dry. And so for me, I learned that I have to call on someone else and I just can't do it by myself. And I love that because that means that it's not just my hand on my business, but God's hand is on my business too. God's hand is on my business. God's hand is on my life. And because of that, I don't have to try to do everything in my strength. So when I'm tired and I'm feeling like, hey, the work that I'm putting in is not putting back out the reward that I'm wanting, I go to God. And it's not always easy as just saying like, God, fix this. But sometimes it's just me having a real moment with God and telling him everything I feel and allowing him now to refill me and refresh me. Because if I just constantly drop things off with God and then just keep going like it doesn't matter and don't spend that quiet time to really hear from him, then I feel like I'm not really addressing what's really going on and allowing him to actually work. I'm just coming to him complaining and then going on about my business. And that's not what I want to do. And that's not what I want to advise anybody else to do. So I don't know if anybody else is feeling like they're putting in a lot of work and maybe right now you're not seeing the results that you want to see, or you feel like I've worked too hard not to be where I want to be. Believe it or not, you're exactly where you need to be. There is a time written where everything will play out exactly how it's supposed to play out in your life, and you will have that expected end. But a lot of times when we hear expected end, we think it'll be our expected end, but a lot more times than not, it's God's expected end. But the good thing is he does take in consideration your wants and your desires, but he goes bigger and better than that. So part of being consistent is just trusting that while I'm planting these seeds and I'm coming every day and I'm watering it, I'm making sure the plants have shade and everything while you're working hard and putting in the work. It's just remembering that God sees. He does see you working hard. He sees every bit of grit and grind that you put into your business, that you put into your mental health, that you put into your wellness, that you just put into your life. And that doesn't you'll never come out short doing the right thing and working hard. You'll never come out on the losing end. And another piece that I want to say is too, not to focus so much else. So focus your mind so much on what everyone else is doing, because what everyone else is doing is pretty irrelevant to what you should be doing, because at the end of the day, everybody's journey and the timing and the plan that God has for everybody's life is different. So not focusing so much on like, wow, she just who could this go for? So, my social media people. I have a lot of people on social media that are influencers and say they listen to the podcast. And I will say, like, if you post something and it doesn't go viral, but you see someone who just started posting on like TikTok or somewhere and they go viral, well, that was meant for them. That doesn't take away from how good your posts are or your social media marketing is. It doesn't take away from the hard work that you've been putting in. It doesn't take away from any of that. If anything, it just shows you that God is so beautiful that he had a different plan for everybody. Because if we all went viral, what would viral even be, honestly? And so I want to just push that it's not about what someone else is doing. It's definitely about where God has you and the hard work that you're doing for your own journey. So keep away from looking at what everybody else is doing and all of that. Because what I've learned is what works for one doesn't mean it'll work for everybody. And you waste time trying to do what everyone else is doing instead of going to God and getting the blueprint on your specific purpose and the plan that he has for you, and asking him, what should I do? Give me wisdom, because the Bible says if we ask for wisdom, he is faithful to give it to us. And so ask God, give me some wisdom on what I can do better to make my content be more explored by more people, to bring me followers. And then also ask yourself, why do you want those followers? I know for me, when I started the podcast and as I started to post more things on social media, I had to ask myself, followers for what? Like, that's a real question. Like, what would happen if you had the followers? What are they following you for? What are you leading them to? And when I asked myself that kind of helped me narrow down what type of content I wanted to do, which really birthed this podcast, because I wanted to help entrepreneurs know that there was a faith side, that it's not just grind, do as the world says and you'll become rich, but there are riches that are stored up in heaven that come from having a relationship with Christ and come for doing the purpose things and the plans that God has asked you to do and fulfilling those things. And that's what I wanted to push out, because I recognize that if I'm going to lead anybody anywhere, I would rather lead them back to Christ, because I can't save you, but I know he can. And so that's something to keep in mind when you're posting and you're wanting to go viral and you're wanting to, why should people follow you? What are you leading them to? Even with your business, whatever you're selling, whatever you're consulting them on, how are you getting people back to Christ? And not only that, if your business has nothing to do with Christ, say you sell ketchup, What can you do with the harvest you do have to lead people to Christ? What can you do with the money you're bringing in? Who could you help? What advice can you give other entrepreneurs? Some good tips or some things that you did that really worked out. What can you do? Because I feel like there's a piece of ministry in every business. There's something you can do that could lead people back to Christ. And the way to do that is making sure you're just rooted in Him. Making sure you're not just taking every piece of advice from the world and making it now the standard you live by. Because yes, the world does have some great, you may find some great investment tips. You may find some great business tips, but that doesn't mean that it always works for your business. Because I've tried to implement some things that I've seen other people do, and God is just like, that's not what I'm doing with you though. And I have to listen to Him, or I choose to listen to Him, because that is the marker of me really doing things for the right reason, is making sure I'm doing it because Christ told me to, and not because I'm just out here doing stuff. And so make sure that you're doing what He's asking you to do. You're not missing the mark when He says like, hey, go left, but you're saying, well, Beyonce told me to go right, so I'm gonna go right. Like, no, we're gonna go left. And what worked for her may work for her, but we're gonna go left. And I'm just using that as an example. No shade, I love Queen Bee. So yeah, that's what I want to, I hope that you get from this podcast, is that continue to be consistent. And even when you don't see your harvest yet, reach out, have a great conversation with God. Maybe take a day, take a break, recuperate, figure out what's working and figure out what doesn't work, and then get back to it. Because on the other side of it, you will either be strengthened or you will see the harvest. Because sometimes it's just right before the breakthrough, things get really hard, even in business. I'm pretty sure Zoom was wondering what they were doing, and then the pandemic hit, and they were like, what? And now look. So, because we already had Skype, so I'm pretty sure Zoom was looking at what Skype was doing, and they were trying to do certain things, but now look at Zoom. It's like the number one platform for businesses to have conferences and meetings, and it has helped the world transition to work from home position and things like that. It's been a great resource for that. And so you never know what's on the other side. So even though you may get tired and weary, don't give up. Consistency is key. When everyone says that, it's kind of annoying, but consistency is key. You're going to see some great things on the other side of what God has called you to do when you stay consistent. And in those moments when you want to give up, talk to Him. Reach out to Him. He will strengthen you. He will give you the encouragement you need, whether He sends somebody's, whether he reminds you of a scripture that's going to help you, or whether He just gets you through the night. Maybe He just gives you peaceful sleep, because He knows that night while you're asleep, He's working and He's already worked everything out. And maybe that morning you get an email, or maybe that morning the money appears that you need to take your business next level. You never know what can happen, but I can 100% tell you, if you give up, nothing will happen. That is 100% proof. If you give up, nothing will happen. And that's not what I want for any business. I want you guys to be fruitful. I want your businesses to grow. And I want to see millionaires, billionaires. I want to see generations leaving a legacy behind of great fruit, good fruit, the fruit that God tells us to bear. That's what I want to see businesses doing, honorable businesses full of integrity, but also being able to live the life that you've desired and the life that God desires for you. And that is my hope for all the business owners out here. So I have had a great time talking to you all. This was definitely kind of like a chit chat more than it was my normal setting of giving you all tips. And we'll be back to that next week. But this week I really just wanted to come and encourage anyone who's feeling like they're doing a lot but not seeing a lot. Trust and believe that God is still working even when you can't see it. And trust and believe all your hard work will not go in vain. It's not in vain. You will see the success that you are hoping. God's not going to start something good with you and then just end it off. So keep up the good work. Stay consistent. As always, if you have any questions, you need some encouragement, reach out to me on social media. I'm thinking about starting an Instagram page for the podcast. I just feel like, that may be another thing adding, or actually, no, we have a Facebook page now. So let's just stick to that because that's easier. So we have a Facebook page. It's Clarissa's Creative Consulting. It will be linked in the podcast description for this episode. And you can go to our Facebook page. And on there, you'll see tips that I post 2 to 3 times a week. And you can also send me questions if you have, or you can sign up for a free consultation and we can talk about your business and see how we can help or how we can partner with you, because we love to hear from our listeners. So make sure you reach out to us on that Facebook page. And as always, I pray everyone have a great week, and we'll see you next week.